What's up, everyone? Let's talk Micro Four Thirds Wildlife Photography 2022. Kind of a report card. Would you suggest them now? There's a lot of changes. You know, one lens comes out, and it kind of changes the course or trajectory of a system. Think of the Sony 200 to 600. Before then, people were really just waiting on that one lens to drop for Sony, and for wildlife, to me, it changed everything for that brand. But let's kind of give a report card for Olympus, Panasonic to a lesser degree, the Micro Four Thirds system. We're going to hit the three areas. Historically, the past, give a little bit of historical background because that kind of can dictate or kind of give a path forward, moving forward. Present, what they're doing right now, some really good things. And then, the future, which is a little bit more murky, not quite as spelled out, that we want to improve on. But so going back to this, back in 2005 or in the early 2000s, there was this 4/3 system before the Micro Four Thirds system. And you could get an Olympus camera with a Sigma 50 to 500, which was an awesome wildlife setup, image stabilization, 1,000 millimeters. And then right around 2009 came the Micro Four Thirds mount, which was essentially the same mount, I guess, smaller. But at that time, Sigma, Tamron, and other companies just kind of dropped support for the system. They just kind of, didn't want to quite go put out the long lenses for Olympus and that. So they kind of muddled around. The Micro Four Thirds system with Olympus and Panasonic, they didn't really have all that great long lenses. Now they had some 300s. They had a 300 f2.8 and the 4/3, which kind of equated to about 600 mil, but it was $6,000. So Olympus and Panasonic spent a lot of time working on some of their shortcomings to the system, which is their 2 times multiplied crop, 35 millimeter. So full frame, if you had a 14 millimeter, is kind of a 14 millimeter. But if you had 14 millimeter with an Olympus, it was 28 millimeters. And there was a lot of criticism there with the system, Olympus system and Panasonic, that they couldn't go wide enough. And they spent a lot of time and energy creating these small lenses, and they really just kind of did not concentrate on the wildlife sector. They were all about small lenses, small cameras, making things small, and guess what? Yeah, this stuff comes around, annihilates in the mid-2000s, annihilates all the small cameras and starts eating away at the APS-C sensor cameras and that. Now, obviously, Olympus has been affected. So over the period of 2012 up, they start coming out with, Panasonic comes out with the 100 to 300, and 2017, and they think they come out the 100 to 400. And now they're starting to do long lenses again, where they've kind of neglected that in the past because that's just something that cell phones can't replace. And they've done a pretty good job upping the ante, really kind of going into the wildlife spectrum. Although somewhat limited, they're still at 400. Olympus just a year or two ago came out with the 100 to 400. They were mentioning this 150 to 400, really expensive f4.5 lens that's just now starting to become available. It's still sold out everywhere, but that's an eye-watering $7,500, which is good and bad. I think the negative part is it's so expensive. But the positive thing, I think it sends a message that they're professional. Like, this is a professional grade lens that you could use anywhere. It's very, very solid. So over the past, 15 years, they've taken some steps back, moved forward, and historically, you got to give them a grade of probably a C. Not the greatest showing, but it could be worse. Their present situation's pretty good. They've got some lenses, the 100 to 400s, the 100 to 300 Panasonic is just out of sight. That is a steal at 547 or 647. That lens is just amazing for what it does. And the next closest thing native to it is the Olympus 300 mil f4, which is an eye-watering $3,000. So there's $600 versus $3,000. Obviously, the build and everything is kind of completely different, but the image quality is really solid. If you look at the cameras that have come out, in the past, they've kind of been slower, but really the thing in 2017 that broke the Micro Four Thirds historical, I guess that the performance level was the G9. To me, that camera is the best buy Best Buy right now for mirrorless cameras. At the time, it was just amazing. It reminds me of the D500. The G9 was an over-spec machine that never got the respect that it deserved. 80 megapixel still images, multi-shot, great EVF, great build. It felt like a D500. It was bigger, solid. It just felt like you could just do all kinds of things with that camera. And then you had the EM1X, I think is EX1M. Olympus came out with a really big camera that looked, you could have really big gloves, cold weather, very solid, looks kind of like a Z9 or something like that. Didn't go over quite so well. And so Olympus, from historically to the present, has been in between. Their president wanted to create a lot of small cameras, small lenses. They were all about that. But I think they've realized that this isn't going to happen. There's just, again, the Micro Four Thirds, the cell phones, smaller camera systems have been wiped out. So they've taken their weakness, hopefully, taken their weakness and turned it into a strength, which is that 2x multiplier. Why did they spend so much time going wide when it was automatically, they had it given to them that they get the focal length for birding and wildlife? That's the main thing that drew me to the Micro Four Thirds system, is you got that 2x multiplier. You can do crazy great stuff with that. And Olympus and Panasonic have always given more bang for the buck. They've given in-body stabilization, multi-shot composition, multi-depth, focus stacking, just great kinds of photography tricks, tips, all that kind of stuff wrapped up into their bodies, where the conventional 3 just didn't really bother. They just felt like, we could do whatever we want. So present, they're set up pretty good. They have a decent lens lined up. It's not great. There is some weaknesses. Moving forward in the future, they have some serious weaknesses, which we'll get into here in a moment. So their present situation, I would put them, I think probably a B plus or a B. Historically, as I mentioned, a C. And their future is a little more uncertain. Some of the things that they're hitting right now, obviously Olympus has been sold to another company, but they're only coming out with expensive cameras. That's understood. Their latest flagship, the OM1, is a great camera. Everything I've heard about it, I haven't got my hands on it. I've been trying to talk to reps, ambassadors, anybody to try to get my hands on it without buying it from Adorama or BH Photo. I guess it just came available out there because they've been sold out as well. But want to try it out. But all the guys that have one rave about how dang fast that thing is. And to me, one thing that Olympus and Panasonic have is their focus or their drive is a little bit lacking. And if I could say this, their marketing is absolutely horrendous. Olympus and Panasonic's marketing is atrocious. It's barely above Pentax, which I would say Olympus and Panasonic, their marketing sucks. Pentax doesn't even suck. Their marketing doesn't even suck. They're so bad. But they really need to pick that up. They need to put the intensity in there. Was it in Breakfast Club, your intensities for junk? Yeah, they need to pick that up, put some testosterone in it, and kind of get with the program. Panasonic's a little bit split between two different worlds. They have their full frame, which they're kind of putting stuff into it, and then they got their Micro Four Thirds, which they come out with the GH6, which is a great video camera, less so of a photography camera. It's still really good, but if I had to choose between the two, the G9 would be better than the GH6 from what I've been playing with it, because they've taken features away from the GH6 that the G9 has, photography-wise, that you're going to want the 2x multiplier, the crops, and all that stuff. But Olympus is caught between this old world and new world. Panasonic's caught between the full frame and Micro Four Thirds. Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? Olympus is caught in this past where they have these small cameras and they've created a Lamborghini engine and they put it into a camera body that looks very classic and traditional. It doesn't look like an outdoors wildlife camera. It doesn't ooze like enthusiasm and gusto. It looks like you're going to go to a museum and take pictures of old stuff. Or You're going to go to an opera and take pictures in silent mode, or your grandma's wedding or birthday party. It just has that classic look. Like, dude, you got to get some testosterone and intensity back in there. Think of Apple and their designs. They just have a lot of vibe, enthusiasm to get people to want to pick it up. If you look at the GoPro ads, the GoPro ads are just all about guys moving around on mountaintops and that. They have the weather build, the ceiling. They have a great build on their camera, decent, but they just don't have the design, and they're not marketing it for excitement. They just kind of let it go. So check this out. This is a iPhone Pro 14 Max cover, and it's very, I bought it because it just jumped out at me. It's supposed to be an 18-foot drop camera case. But that's the kind of stuff. If you're advertising for outdoor extreme conditions, do you want a classical camera look? I mean, when it's got a Ferrari internals, the thing is they need to step it up. Their marketing needs to step it up and go against the Z9. That's the Ferrari right now. I mean, they can do it 120 frames a second. Pro capture mode, multi-shot, image stabilization is out of sight, unrivaled by the other guys. And you just don't hear anything about it. They got a 2x multiplier crop. They got digital crops. They got all kinds of good stuff. And they're just kind of sitting on the sidelines. And they probably need to talk with a lot more people on YouTube, get the camera in their hands, really focus on the outdoor groups, because that's where the small stuff really shines. That's where the small cameras and the lenses really shine. They got the great small lenses. Even the 100, 300 is a great outdoor lens. It's so small. But if they think they're going to take back, you know, the inner city, the guy who's going to do this, this here is a full frame, world's smallest full frame camera, Sigma FP, 35 millimeter on it. And it will fit in my jean pocket, like my jeans, not a coat pocket. And it's smaller than a majority of the Olympus cameras. So they're just not going to get this back. There's just too much competition in that area. They got to focus, get some intensity, move forward, and have a plan. Like, put that stake in the ground. If they're going to go with the 2x multiplier, if that's going to be their strong suit, then make it their strong suit. Make it forward and excite people about that. Last piece of advice and last thing looking forward to the future is the 150 to 600. Olympus. 16 years ago, I was shooting 1,000 millimeters with image stabilization in body, and I still cannot do that today. I was 1,000 to 50 to 500. Your 100 to 400 is probably built by Sigma, or a majority of it, and rebranded. Buy a million of these from Sigma, $1,400, $1,500. Bump it up to $2,500 and put your brand, do whatever you got to do and make it happen. Now you can run 1,200 millimeters at f6.3. Heck, not even charge $3,000 for it. Make it happen and become the king of long distance bird photography. Make it so there's no other one. Nobody can go in any camera store anywhere. If someone says, I need a long lens, I need a long birding system, make Olympus or Panasonic the king of that. It's very easy for you to do, but you gotta have some foresight. You gotta get off your tush and actually talk with Sigma. They have some extra bandwidth now that they're not building lenses for another major company. Talk to them and make this happen. And that's it. It's easier than that. I don't know what else to say, because you kind of been, for years, I just kind of watch you fumble around with the wildlife groups and that, but it's totally possible. Drive that in the future, put some plans out in the future, redesign your cameras, give it some cool looks, get some younger vibes going on. Use YouTube as your speaking station. There's a lot of guys that would love to shoot with your cameras, but you got to get off your duff. You got to contact them. I've talked to 2 or 3 ambassadors trying to get a rental or a used camera, just trying to talk to someone at Olympus. Can't do it. It's just going on deaf ears. So that's it. Their future, I'm going to say, is this C as well. So we got past a C, present is pretty nice. We got a B, and their future is C. It's a little undetermined. I think they know what they want to do, but they got to put those stakes in the ground, and they got to get off the tush, get some intensity going, and get people talking about their product. And I think It will work. It can happen for them. They can rule the ground. They got a Ferrari. They need to get it out of the Volkswagen body and put it into something where it belongs. They need to get that enthusiasm there for wildlife photographers. That's it, guys. Would I buy an Olympus system? On the fence. I think if they came up with a lens that I'm really wanting, I would probably be all over it again. I probably would be right back in there because my adapters aren't working. It's totally possible. 2 years ago, my adapters worked with my Sigma 150 to 600. For some reason, it went out, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of switched over. So that's it, guys. Hope this helps, and comments, questions below. And maybe we'll try this with Nikon. Nikon has got a lot of excitement with that Z9. Everybody's talking about that camera, man. And it is extremely Ferrari-ish. So that's it, guys. Questions, comments, and I'll see you later.